In the eyes of the Calcafernian justice system, the ultimate cosmic crime is alteration, the act of rewriting established history. The Calcafernians learned this the hard way. When they first invented time travel, they used it to correct past tragedies, but each fix caused the timeline to branch into a chaotic, tangled knot of crossing paths. They eventually restored the original sequence by force of law, declaring that history must be preserved exactly as it happened, regardless of the individual suffering required to maintain it. Minister Levat oversees this temporal order, acting as the uncompromising enforcer of the mandate. Within this system, time functions as a rigid mathematical equation, one that cannot be allowed to drift for the sake of personal desire. This rotating helix represents Artix Larceret. By merging genetics from 4 distinct worlds, Artix inherited a state of near godlike immortality. To endure the weight of centuries, Artix wipes his own memories, repeatedly inserting himself into societies across the galaxy to live out normal, unaware mortal lives. This creates a constant internal friction. He has the pedigree to be the timeline's ultimate protector, yet his history is defined by a series of trials for violating its core rules. Even the most secure timeline remains vulnerable to the messy, localized unpredictability of human emotion. By living as a mortal, Artix becomes susceptible to the one variable the Calcafernian laws cannot calculate: love. The villain Harold Baxter exploits this vulnerability by manipulating history to place Artix in a perfect legal trap. Artix recognizes the alteration immediately. Under the highest law, he is required to reset the timeline and erase Baxter's interference. But because he fell in love with Sheila Monroe during his time as a mortal, he faces a horrific choice. Sheila's very existence is a byproduct of Baxter's meddling. If the timeline is restored, she is permanently erased. Artix decides to let the altered history stand. He knowingly risks his own execution at the hands of Minister Levat to ensure Sheila continues to exist. In this moment, a single human connection takes precedence over the abstract purity of universal history. This conflict appears again in an anomaly bridging Earth and the Empire of Relv, involving the warrior Korsk and a human named Thomas. As this diagram shows, a convergence of timelines brings them together across different eras. Their intersection creates a family unit and 2 paradox children, Juan and Maria, who shouldn't exist. By every Calcafernian metric, this entire family is a mistake that must be scrubbed from the record. Artix protects them by invoking a legal loophole called established history. He argues that because he has already integrated into these events, they have become a permanent part of the timeline that cannot be undone. It demonstrates that even the most rigid laws of time can be outmaneuvered if the person in charge is motivated to find a way. Artix's habit of bending the rules eventually places a heavy burden on his brother Joey. While undercover with a ruthless group known as the Death Lords, Joey is tasked with maintaining the correct flow of history. Joey hits a breaking point when the mission requires him to execute an innocent woman named Talana. To the history books, her death is a necessary data point for the mission's success. With Artix absent, Joey has no one to find a creative loophole for him. He has to make the choice entirely on his own. He is left to decide if preserving a sequence of events is ever worth the immediate cost of an innocent life. To understand why Artix and Joey keep choosing individuals over equations, we have to look at the planet Doxier, another world that defines their heritage. Doxier is home to the Tovil. It is a massive glowing core that serves as the interconnected life force of every person on the planet. The Tovil stores the memories and emotions of everyone who has ever lived there, creating a network where feelings are treated as a shared power source. In this environment, a timeline is just an empty container. The value of history is measured by the actual pulse of the lives and connections held within it. This perspective defines Artix's true strength. It isn't his immortality or his time-traveling ship that makes him formidable. By choosing to live as a mortal, he learned that history isn't just an equation to be balanced by an authority, it is a collection of experiences. Calcafern's rigid laws attempt to impose order on a universe overflowing with shapeshifters, androids, and shifting dimensions. A moment of wonder. Ultimately, in a multiverse of infinite variables, the most disruptive and powerful force is the capacity to love enough to break the rules.